When you heard this news, you immediately went to the Deebo aspect of it. Why is that so intriguing?
Well, because Deebo's in the perfect situation to be played to his optimal kind of talent. If you look at how San Francisco uses him, it's almost two-sided. The reality is that there's not many teams, if any, that could replicate the way that they use Deebo Samuel, that positionless type of player, the multiple ways they try to get him the football. You see him motioning out and just throwing those bubble screens. They put him in the backfield and hand it off to him as a tailback. So if you're San Francisco, you're almost sitting there going, wait, no one can use you the way that Kyle Shanahan, our head coach, does. But then if you're Deebo Samuel's camp, you also sit there and say, I play multiple positions for you. So I'm not going to just ask for quote-unquote wide receiver money, because when you decide to pay me, you're paying really three players in one because of the amount of stuff that I do for you.
Oh, yes. Deebo Samuel's not only a number one at wide receiver, he's a number one at running back, a number one at tight end, H-back, however you want to put it. He can make all those plays, but because he's so valuable to the 49ers, he shouldn't diminish his value to the rest of the league. He's a true number one. Scary Terry's a true number one. And A.J. Brown is also a true number one, but he's the one to watch because he could possibly be moved. Coach Vrabel proved last year that they can win games without King Henry, right? Derrick Henry. So, of course, they're going to put together some type of plan to be able to win without A.J. Brown. But I can tell you right now, if I'm the quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, I don't want to have to live in that reality because A.J. Brown is such a dynamic playmaker. So what we're seeing is these guys understand the business of the NFL. Right? The guys that are in their class or before them have already gotten paid. They are handling their business on the NFL side, and I respect that.
Hey, listen, RG3, let me say this right now. I think all these teams have made it very clear that they don't want to move their wide receivers. The Niners don't want to move Deebo. The Seahawks have said there's no intent to move DK Metcalf. The Titans don't want to move A.J. Brown. Washington, Terry McLaurin. The fact of the matter is, if they can't get these players re-signed, what do you do? And it really should not be a question about the money. Deebo Samuel in San Francisco might just be the best player on their team, and they know that. The issue is not money here. Remember last week or a couple of weeks ago, he took all the 49ers references off his social media. So it might not just be money. It might be bigger than just money and getting these players re-signed.
It's an important clarification. Just a reminder, as Adam said off the top of the show, this is happening now. The draft is next week. All of this leading into the draft, and it all revolves around draft picks that could be traded, plus some of these teams that may have to grab a receiver in the draft. Dan, is there a wide receiver needy team that should have their eye on these situations if one of these guys doesn't end up staying where they are?
I think people naturally will say, well, the Packers and the Chiefs, but they just lived that world. They can't, because once you trade for these guys, they're going to ask for big-time money. I think the reality is when you look at the Tyreek Hill, the Devontae Adams, the Stephon Diggs of the world, those guys are scheme changers. They're game changers. And unless a team sees one of these young wide receivers as that, you should look to the draft. Now, the Colts, they need wide receiver help. The New York Jets need wide receivers. Not only do they have the ability to acquire these guys with draft picks, but they also have the ability to pay them, and also the New England Patriots. Those are the three teams that I sit here and go, you know, either improving football teams or playoff football teams that have the ability to acquire one of those guys, then the ability to pay them. If I was one of those teams, the one guy that I would feel most comfortable about trading a relatively early pick and then paying would be Terry McLaurin.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.